Hello, I'm Robin. Welcome to Bookspin. And today I've got another short story collection to talk about. This one is Contingency Plans for the Apocalypse and Other Possible Situations by S.B. Divya. This was published in 2019. So I only just discovered this author recently, but I've been very impressed with everything that I've read by her so far. And this is no exception. This is one stellar short story collection. There are 14 stories in here, and they're pretty diverse in their range of themes, but they all contain some very creative ideas. These ideas are intriguing and often thought-provoking, and these are the kind of things which I look for and I appreciate in sci-fi short stories. And what's more, the prose in these stories is consistently engaging and accessible. And Divya's pretty good at creating interesting characters and sympathetic characters, which is pretty impressive in as much as the short story format allows for complex character building. So it's a solid collection for sure. Now, the stories in here vary quite a bit in their length. Some of them are really short, like 4 pages long or 6 pages long. And these really short ones, didn't really leave much of an impression on me. The stories that did leave an impression on me, an indelible impression, would be the ones which were sort of in a 20 to 30 page range. So I'll mention a couple of those in a minute. But probably the highlight of the whole book would be a novella which appears at the end of the volume, and this is called Runtime, and this is about 90 pages long, so it's quite a big chunk of the book. This was originally published separately as Divya's debut book, and I think it's quite a good showcase for her writing. If you just read one of her stories, I think this would be a good pick. So I'll talk a little bit about Runtime. So in this story, we've got a kind of near-future thriller about a race, a cyborg race, that takes place in the mountains, in the wilderness. And we've got quite a compelling protagonist who decides to take part in this race, and some intelligent social commentary that runs throughout the story. So the central character is a young woman called Marmeg, and she comes from a socially disadvantaged background. She is an unlicensed citizen, which in this vision of the future basically amounts to being a second-class citizen. So to have a license, it's only really available for those who can afford them, and you need a license to be able to access things like education, healthcare, and career opportunities. So Marmog doesn't have a license. She's an unlicensed citizen, but she does have some excellent technical skills. She's gifted at engineering, and she has a passion for programming, things like embedded chips. So in this world, cybernetic enhancements have reached a very advanced state. So Marmeg has been filching parts from the trash cans of rich people and using these to cyborgize herself. So she's created her own exoskeleton and various bodily augmentations with the kind of things that she's found. But she lacks the social and economic means to make full use of her talents and to take an engineering degree and pursue a dream of becoming a professional cyborg engineer. So she decides to enter this race. It's a kind of endurance race which takes place in the wilderness, right? With the promise of a load of money, prize money, for the winner. So she hopes that she will win this prize and use the money to give her a better future and also to support her family. So that is the basic premise of the story. I think it works really well as a character-driven narrative. It's got excellent tension and pacing, and it's also got quite a cinematic quality to it. So I think it would work well as a movie adaptation. So that's Runtime. I think that's the standout story of the book. But there are plenty of other gems in here too. I'll just quickly mention a few of the others that stood out for me. So we've got the title story, Contingency Plans for the Apocalypse, which is perhaps the darkest story in here, and it's a kind of dystopian survival thriller. It's pretty absorbing, but it's also quite heart-wrenching. And there's another story in here which is called Dusty Old Things, which has got quite a different tone to it. And this is a kind of multiverse-themed story. It's about a woman who somehow finds herself in contact with an alternate version of herself from a parallel universe. And she makes contact with this woman. And this is a really interesting story. It was very entertaining. Highly recommend it. Another one I enjoyed was called An Unexpected Boon, which is set in ancient India. And it actually has more of a fantasy feel than SF. I would say it's a fantasy story. It's about a girl who receives a strange gift from a sage in the form of a beetle that holds special mystical powers. So that's quite an interesting one. So you can see there's quite a diverse range of ideas and themes in these stories. But they do have a lot of interesting characters. Anyway, I won't go through all of the stories, but there was nothing that was really disappointing in here. Like I said, some of the really short stories weren't as memorable. I guess there's only so much you can do with a 4-page story. But there are a lot of 4-star stories in here, some arguably 5 stars. I would give Runtime 5 stars. So overall, it's an excellent collection. It's one of the best short story collections I've read in a long time. I would give this book 4.5 stars. Thank you for watching. My next review will be this collection, The Time Migration by Liu Cixin, which I'm already halfway done with, so I'll talk about that soon. Until next time, thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon.